Alrighty, well, welcome to the Panathinaikos International Fans Podcast. This is the American edition. We've got our American crew here, the Greek Americans. I'm your host today, Andoni. I'm here with Mitso and I'm here with Alki. Mitso, let's start off with you. A little introduction, background, let the people know who you are.
Yeah, so I was born in the States. My dad was a lifelong Panathinaikos fan. He grew up watching the team. He ditched his strato and went to Athena to watch the cup final against AEK. I don't remember what year, but he got like a special exemption to leave. So, he brought me into it, but I didn't start really watching until 2008 or so when my family and I moved to Greece. So my first time watching Panathinaikos was, I guess that for that Champions League season that we beat Inter and Vedder Vremi away 1-0 and 3-0 respectively. We got first place in that group stage, if I remember correctly. So that was my first like experience. And then after that, it was the double season combined with beating Roma in Europa League away and home 3-2. So that's kind of like that was my first introduction to the team. And I actually got to watch the league winning game against Irakli at Oaxaca 2-0. My dad surprised me and took me to Oaxaca that game. So I've been a fan since then, and I moved back to the States in 2011, and it's been a battle, honestly, sometimes keeping up with the team, especially back then. But the last couple, 2, 3, 4 years, maybe, finding all the guys on Twitter that we've connected with, it's been great. Like keeping up with it, it's made it so much easier. And I mean, now we're just on a mission to spread the team and make sure as many people as we can get to knows about Panathinaikos.
Nice, nice. Yeah, great introduction there, Mitso. Nice story there. Family history of Panathinaikos that continues today. Alki, what about you?
Well, I can't speak to the same level as Mito. He got brought on in a real good way, to get introduced to the team, and what a good time. I'm a little older, so let's see. I started watching, and I mentioned all the time in our chat, like when I was super young, my Yaya Papu and my mom were all Panathinaikos fans. So that's how I got kind of introduced to it. I grew up watching Liberopoulos when I was a kid, and just he was my favorite player growing up. But obviously, I wasn't of age to really like understand the game and support it like we do now. And then for a while, became a teenager, lost interest in it, and then kind of slowly came back to, I'd say, the last like 7 or 8 years. Probably right after the start of our downfall, I guess you could say, really. uh, so yeah, I started really getting back into it. But I mean, every summer going to Greece, my whole family over there, we're all Panathinaikos fans, so that's how I kind of got introduced to it, and just kind of, like you said, like Mita said, hard to keep up with it. Obviously, in the state, they limit a lot of it, but obviously, social media, blessing and a curse in today's society, is one of those things that also helps us kind of, we find ways to keep in touch with it, whether that's streaming it, or we didn't have streaming back then. It was like you either had the Greek cable box, or you'd find out from the Greek newspapers or from your Thea and Theo across the way. So I'm very happy that we're in the phase of being able to keep up with it as much as we can now, and hopefully grow it even more and get more coverage of it with this.
Nice. Yeah, Alki, my background a little bit is it's kind of similar with yours. I'm a little bit younger. I started watching Panathinaikos around it was like 2009, 2010 season, but that was, when I was 12, 13 years old, so I wasn't too, knowledgeable about the game. That was like the era with Jibril Cisse, Leito, all those star players on the team. And so the team won the double. And it's one of those things that I regret, that I didn't get to understand and appreciate it in the time. But as kind of the years had gone by, like around 2011, 2012 or so, that's when I really started to get into Panathinaikos. Like my dad's from Athens, so there's that connection, right? My dad was born and raised in Athens. Uh, you know, Good connection to my family, right? Panathinaikos, it's Greek. And I felt like a big connection with the club. I was able to kind of watch the team on the Greek cable box channel that we had with Verizon. And, every weekend watching Panathinaikos play, it was always a treat. And, one game specifically that I will never forget was the game against Tottenham at White Hart Lane. Panathinaikos, we're down 1-0. Zeka equalizes 1-1. That euphoria of like, we're going to come back, we're going to win. And then that roller coaster emotion of just losing 3-1 after. And I just kind of just sat there and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be Panathinaikos for my whole life. And that's kind of like the start of the almost like I guess the downfall, like the bad years that we've seen with Panathinaikos, last decade or so. Um, but like you guys touched on, now it's a lot easier to keep up with the team with things like these streaming services that they have, like Cosmote and stuff like that, with those Nova Sports, things like that. Like you can keep track online as well, reach out to people, check scores, and it's just cool having this community of Panathinaikos fans. Um, so yeah, that's what I definitely have to share there. I think we have some similarities there and some unique things. But with that said, let's kind of segue into our conversation. So as we know, Panathinaikos is kind of it's a football club, but it's also got a basketball team and all these other organizations a part of it. But let's talk about the football club. So we've got friendlies coming up. We've got a couple of friendlies coming up for the FC. We've made some signings. We've seen some departures. Heading into the friendlies, is there anything that you guys want to see Jovanovic maybe try out, or maybe there's something that he did last year that you would like to see changed or maybe continue? What are you guys thinking as we head into this friendly?
Hmm.
I think I think the biggest thing that Jovanovic is going to focus on will be establishing the midfield, because at the moment it doesn't seem like we're getting another signing in the midfield. I know a lot of people have been talking about bringing in more players and even in the midfield position, but to me it seems that what we have is what we're going to be going into the season with, at least for the midfield. And I think he's going to be working with that group of players a lot, um, interchanging a lot of people in the different positions and working with different partnerships.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good point to start at, Mito, because as we know, we brought in two new midfielders. We lost Courbelis, and I think last year a big thing that while it worked all season for us was I think we always lacked in the midfield like that 10 that got or like having a complete midfield to cover all areas, the 8, the 10, and a 6. And I think with these signings, while Zeka, we've talked about it, what he brings, what is he going to bring at this stage? What are the expectations? I think we've got a better balance now, especially with the other sign. I don't want to butcher his name, but I think that's a good point because that's basically where Jovanovic has done his most work this offseason, and we basically have a whole new midfield outside of, Perez and setting, maybe these new signings will push some of these guys, and he's got a good bunch to rotate. I feel like this last season, even the season before, Courbelis came off of a very strange long-term injury. We didn't know what he was going to be like. He had ups and downs, but he was one of our best players. But, one thing I noticed was Greek football, we're very well known for having defensive midfielders. That's like our backbone outside of defense and defenders. And I noticed that Jovanovic started playing him more in a more progressive forward role, which was interesting because that's not really nothing against Courbelis. He did a great job, but he's not really like a great playmaker. He doesn't have that much technique on the ball, shooting. Like he's not an offensive minded guy, but Jovanovic slowly started moving him there. And I think with his departure, obviously, I think it's going to hurt a lot. But I think his replacement between the new Serbian guy and Zeka, it'll bring us a better balance in trying to make a guy play a position that he's just not meant to be in. But it will be interesting because we've got a couple new guys and a couple old guys. So Jovanovic rotating there. My only other thought I would say, and we can circle back to this after you give your thoughts, Aboni, was talked about it, and obviously we're shy in that position as striker, but I think we've noticed Forti has really excelled playing kind of off of a striker while he's been pretty good as a lone nine. I'd be interested to see them play like him as a secondary, bringing a guy right behind him. More maybe like a 4-3-1-2 or something like that. Just kind of switch it up. But as we've seen, Jovanovic always goes to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. He's going to stick with that 4-3-3, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, those are great points. And just to kind of build off on that, I think that is kind of like a main kind of focus, or at least a point of interest that I want to take a look at as well, is just kind of trying to establish that midfield, I think. Because like you guys pointed out, like Alki as well, you point out like Juricic, the Serbian guy that we signed, that he could play as like a Decari, he could play on the left. I'm curious to see what he can do. Maybe he can provide some stability in that 10 role. Maybe he can play, some piercing passes, maybe something that can kind of break those defensive lines a little bit, and then just trying to establish like some sort of system where Zeka and Perez can kind of work together, maybe having like a 4-3-3 with those two as kind of like the double pivot, and then Juricic as like the 10, and just kind of he's the one that plays balls forward, maybe working with that, because defensively we've got Magnuson as our left center back, and then our right-sided center back is Schegenfeld, but we haven't added the depth there yet. And so I'm wondering if he's going to try to maybe use two kind of like defensive midfielders to add some protection there, with Juricic kind of taking on that responsibility offensively. So that's certainly going to be an idea, because I think the midfield is going to kind of be like that make or break for us maybe in this preseason, just to kind of see what we're going to roll with heading into the European qualifier with Dnipro. So that's definitely something that I'd like to see. And just to kind of like circle back to your point as well, Alki, like figuring out something with our striker situation, maybe having Foti in, who's also very mobile. Maybe he can play off of our Decari like Juricic, finding ways to get our wingers involved. So it's going to be really interesting. Certainly, that's something that I'd like to see going forward in the friendlies, just to see some switches. I think, like you said as well, I think that he's probably going to stick with that 4-3-3 because he really likes his wingers. We've added, again, I keep circling back to him, Juricic, which he can play that winger or that Decari role. So we're going to see what's going to happen, but that's going to be a really important piece kind of going forward, and just how we're going to approach the game towards Dnipro. Maybe that's going to push the team to make some signings before that.
We hope so, man, because I think that's another big thing I think we can all agree on is like the lack of signings. Like, yes, we've signed a couple guys and filled some needs, but I feel, man, we're getting close to preseason games, like we mentioned, to start this conversation, and I feel like we're still missing. Like, even if you remove to a 4-2-3-1, if you want to stick with one striker, help pad that defense, because I think we've reestablished that midfield, because I think I could be wrong here, but I feel a lot of games we noticed last midfield is where we were killed. And as we all know, in that game, if you don't have them, that's your engine of your team. And I feel like there was a big gap to help fill it. We were either too far forward or too, conservative, staying back. And we got killed, I think, in a lot of games. Just that's where our weak spots were was there, and sometimes on the counters because everyone's too far forward. We didn't have anybody back up those center backs, like you said. So I wonder if that's going to be Jovanovic's approach this time around with the signing.
Right. Yeah. And kind of piggybacking off of that a little bit. Are there any players or any signings that you guys want to see? Just kind of like specifically addressing, towards those areas. Maybe is there like a number 6 you're looking at, maybe a number 8, a right back? What are you guys thinking right now that the team would most likely need? I know we haven't really gotten into any official friendlies yet, but just off of what we saw last year and the departures we see now, anything that kind of sticks out to you guys, Mito and Alki?
I think a 6. I mean, it's really hard to say as far as like actual signing. While social media in this day and age we can finally keep up, as we said, more Greek media and just media on these teams is still like a really hard to find thing. There's not much out there for people outside of Greece to be able, and even those in Greece, Greek media, as we know, is like so exaggerated. It's always there. There's always some drama, some stretching of the truth. These rumors don't really come to fruition. It's there to kind of stir some stuff up. But I think we do definitely need some help in the center back, and a 6 for me are the 2 spots that I feel. Obviously, we know striker. We've talked about it. Falti's great. I think he's got that locked in. But with Sporar, make or break. If we go down a striker, though, an injury to a striker, like I think we're in big trouble, personally.
Mito, your thoughts?
For me, I think the biggest priority at this point would be a center back or a right back. And for a center back specifically, a right-sided center back, because it seems that Mladenovic, who is a left back or a left-sided player, it seems like he can switch into a center back position if necessary, from what I've seen. So he would cover the left center back position. So it seems like if necessary for Magnusson, but we don't have any backup option for Schenderfeld. So it would be that and maybe a right back as a bigger priority, I think.
Nice. Yeah. And I'm kind of, I'm somewhere in the middle between what you both said. Alki, I agree. I think, striker, if we end up losing one of Foti or Sporar, we're going to be in trouble because Sporar for me, I had high expectations for him. He's been scoring. It's just it's not at a consistent rate, and so even if we lost him, we just have Foti, and even then, Foti, I prefer Foti over Sporar just because he's just such a mobile striker and he's great with the ball, nice technical ability. He's still figuring himself out a little bit. He's still young, and so I think he's trying to, learn when it's time to take shots, when it's time to pass the ball up. And so if we're just left with Foti, I think we're kind of stuck there. Of course, we got some youth players, but at the same time, if you're trying to fight for places in Europe and you're trying to fight for a Prodathima, I mean, you're going to need an established striker. So I'm with you there. And Mitso as well, I agree. You brought up a great point where Mladenovic is one of the signings that we had in that, he's a left-sided player. He could play as a back, a left back, and he can play as a left-sided center back. But if Bart goes down, which as we've seen over the last few years, he's a little bit injury prone, we don't really have that right-footed center back. And so, we've lost Sadlia and we've lost Puguras. So we're going to need to find some type of backup there. And then,
Mladenovic he's left-footed, right?
Yeah.
He's left-footed, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of like with Ethniki, there's always that worry, and I don't know why it is. It's kind of like a double standard if you think about it. But it's always a worry playing 2 left-footed players kind of like in the middle. Like, yes, he can slot into a center back, but like playing next to Magnuson, isn't he left-footed, or am I mistaken?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Magnuson is left-footed.
So like it's very rare you see two left-footed players play together in a center back role. It's just kind of like a weird worry. I don't know what it is. This weird voodoo that everyone feels about, but like we've seen it happen with Ethniki and it doesn't work out in some teams when they play it. So like, yeah, we're definitely going to need a right-footed player to back him up because
Yeah.
I was trying to remember if he was left-footed or not, and that doesn't really help our
Yeah,
right
we're gonna
side.
need to really like reinforce that right side, and then along with that is just maybe it's not a huge priority, but I mean, I'd still try to bring in some type of right back to, bring some sort of competition toward Kotsiras. I know we've played Vallanidis, but he's more of like, that wing back type modern player where he's really good going forward. But defensively, Panathinaikos had the best defense in the league last season. To keep that, I think we're gonna you know, try to have that defensive minded right back as well, that traditional right back. We lost Facundo Sanchez, so maybe bringing in that third right back as well. So as you guys can kind of see, I'm kind of in the middle there. Um, I think those signings are something to keep an eye out for, and just kind of sticking with the signings. That topic of the signings. Uh, what do you guys think we do? Do you guys think that we're gonna kind of play the waiting game? I know Mitso, you said that this is probably what we're standing pat with at the moment. Or do you guys think that we're gonna, maybe Ivan's gonna wait to see what kind of results we get against Dnipro, and then he's gonna kind of make those pushes for the signings? What are we kind of thinking with that?
I mean, at this point, do we want to rush any signings? I mean, we did it last season where we waited and then made a bunch of random rush signings before the window ended. I wasn't too happy or a fan of that, but it's like at this point we're a couple weeks out. Like even if we get a signing in, is that enough time for Jovanovic to integrate them, see what they look like? Like how much time will we really have outside of like training? They can look great in training, but it matters what the end product is on the field. Um, do we want to rush it? We're kind of unfortunately at a standpoint now where I personally feel like we need to wait it out. Unfortunately, I would have liked to have signings, but I don't think it'd be smart to make any signings now. Unless it'd be like a pretty big signing where we know it'll be very impactful. Which, like we saw last season, a lot of these guys that we got at the end deadline weren't, guys that we knew were going to start right away, make an impact. They were kind of like more depth signings for the bench in case something happens. And that was me another thing you mentioned it. I think we were really lucky with health, especially in our defense last year. Bart's not ever been the super healthiest, but I think he had a good season in terms of staying healthy. And same Magnuson was on and off, but that's my worry is if we don't make any signings, we got to really rely on them staying healthy again this year.
Right. Yeah. Mitso, what are your thoughts? You're sticking pat with what we're gonna go with?
I think for now at least, yeah. Um, there there's always the chance if we move on to the next round after Dnipro that there's going to be more signings, at least one or two more, but who knows? I mean, I think Jovanovic is the type of coach that will stick with the guys that he has. And it seems like for now, at least, what we have is what we're going to go through. I mean, we played Dnipro in a couple of weeks, so I don't really see anyone coming into the team that would play a significant role in those two legs within that time frame.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off of that point there, so we were discussing it earlier today. Uh, just the thought maybe Ivan is thinking about the players that we've got returning from injury. So, guys like Alex Trolet, right? He's a midfield player. Guys like Aitor, right? Who are, they were a key part early in the season last season. And guys like Ganea as well, right? He's a left back who was injured. He came back. So we've got a few players coming back, and Verbic, for example, he wasn't injured, but he's also kind of coming off of a season where he had some struggles, but we're going to be starting fresh now. And he knows, and he's come out, he's expressed how much he appreciates the support from the club and the coach during that hard time. And so maybe Jovanovic is thinking that, these guys, them coming in, them coming back from injuries, almost like signings in themselves. So perhaps he's counting on that. He's going to see what happens with Dnipro, and then he's going to make some moves if need be after. I think heading into the game, I agree with you guys. I think we're gonna stand pat as it is because it just doesn't seem like it would be the wisest decision at this point to make a signing because you've got to clear medicals, you've got to get them acclimated, make sure they're fit. It might not be enough time. And currently, as constructed, I think our club and the way that we play with our coaching style, I think we could beat Dnipro. That should absolutely be the priority, obviously. But I think I think we could get that win, and it's from there. If we see that we're struggling a little bit, then I think we start to make those moves if needed. Maybe we'll add in, um, some reinforcements in areas that though I would like to see, like strikers as I mentioned. Um,
I have a
so
quick question for you guys,
sure.
and kind of well, a couple, but with the lack of signings, as we saw last year too, among just all our fans, do you think that's a part on Alafuso on it, or do you think, and how I've seen it too, and I think it's a little bit of both, but do you think it's a Jovanovic? Because as we've seen, he's very particular about the players he goes after or the profile he looks for when he's looking for something. Like he just doesn't go out there and look like, hey, we need a striker. Okay, what's in the market? Bring on whatever we can afford. He's like very, very particular about his personnel and who he puts on the field, obviously with the current players and when bringing guys in. I've noticed he goes for very, I don't know, guys that fit his style. He's obviously a very smart, and we can see he can do a lot with so little. Do you think it's on Jovanovic and he's just being very picky in particular, or do you think it's Alafusos with just lack of backing the club and the coach?
Good question. Mito, you want to go and answer that one first?
I think at this point it's Jovanovic. I mean, I know Alafouzos hasn't always been the best owner and the one to really back the managers, but at this point, I think it is Jovanovic. I think he's at least for this month of July trying to see what he has within the personnel and how the existing squad can fit onto the field. And he'll make moves after that accordingly. Like I think there's a lot of interchanging parts. Like for example, I think the partnership between Ioannidis and Aitor is something that he's going to keep an eye out for, because if I remember correctly, Foti didn't really hit the ground running while Aitor was really picking up all those goals and assists in the first half of the season. It was kind of later on that Foti got more playing time and actually had an impact on the team, scoring goals and winning penalties and all this stuff. So I think he's in one respect, one part of the field, banking on a new partnership establishing between those two. That's one part of the field, the striker and right wing position where I thought it would play. So I think that is one example of him trying to make the best out of his team moving forward. And I think similar examples would be made with Tokai and Alex Trullier coming back from injury in the midfield. So I think he's going to try and see how everyone from those guys fit into the team moving forward, at least for now.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it is point of conversation that split. Personally, I think it's more so Jovanovic and his approach to the game. I think he's very particular with how he does things. We don't see too many tweaks to his 11 week in week out, but we do see tweaks to his tactics. So there's like a method to the madness. It can be a little bit frustrating as a fan, waiting for these signings to come, but I think he's purposely waiting it out. Like we've seen with some of the signings from last summer. Even I remember with Vital, that Brazilian winger that we got. It took a couple of weeks. I remember reading that for Panathinaikos to get the loan done because they were waiting on the okay from Jovanovic. So I think he's very particular about the style and the types of players he has in his team. I think he's just one of those coaches where he takes into account player attitude and their ability to buy in as well. Obviously, on top of being quality players, so I'm sure he does his thorough research. He wants to make sure that the teams or the players are going to buy into his scheme. We noticed last year he went with 3 Slovenians. This year he's gone with 2 or 3 Serbians. So I think that chemistry and that culture building is really big with him. And so that's probably why he's a little particular. He wants to make sure that players are fitting into the culture that he's created because this is the first time Panathinaikos has had a winning culture in quite a long time. So I think he
Well, he's like a
understands.
perfectionist too. He's like constantly tinkering, but what he has versus like some other coaches will just bring in the top talent. He's an old head, but you can notice like I said, he's very specific and method to his madness, and it's not just the quality of play on the field. It's the overall package, attitude, what you bring to the team, all that. And it's funny to see that in the Greek league, let alone Panathinaikos, because he's been with us. This is what going to be his 3rd season now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like, how many
right.
teams can say that they've had the same coach for more than a season, half a season? The way
Yeah,
the revolving door works, and we've got one for 3 seasons now.
3 seasons is an eternity in our league, that's for sure. Yeah, so there's that particular aspect that he's got to the team building. So that's where again, I've said that it can be a little bit frustrating, but I understand it because we were a few points away from winning the Prodathima. We won the Kipelo the first season he was here, and so clearly he knows what he's doing. And so sometimes I've got to remind myself that he's the professional coach and I'm just the fan thinking with my emotions sometimes. Um, so yeah, I think that's what it is more so than Alafouzos really, because we've seen in the past Alafouzos has, uh, he's brought in players, especially a bunch during the winter window. He's brought in. I just think for the first time, we're very very particular about what he wants
Well,
with that
and
with the
Alafuzos
club.
has given
So
him a lot of control. You know,
I,
letting him pick the players, letting him pick the personnel. I mean, he was just brought in that technical director where before, Jovanovic was playing both roles.
right.
And we even noticed last year there were a lot of rumors after every game, or Alafuzos was more involved, like because of how successful we're. Like, here's a bonus, for this game, or if you guys beat them, here's another like player bonus. And sure, it happens more often than not, but to hear that come out in the media and be public was kind of refreshing to see. Obviously, I'm not going to give him all his praise and flowers, but it felt like after last season we saw some slight changes, even with Alafuzos just turning a corner with how he compared to how he's run the club in years past with different coaches and players.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just brought a complete different culture change with those bonuses being handed out. And that's something good to see as a fan. So here's hoping it continues. Here's hoping that we see a level of success further. I'm fingers crossed. I'm hoping we get the Prodathima this year. Also hoping we can get into group stages. And it's just at this point, in Ivan we trust. Haven't seen a coach like him in a very vulture on its back because the fans, for years, myself included, it was kind of a negative mindset. Versus now, like they say, like the saying in Greece is that he's brought the fans back to the stadium on Sundays and Saturdays to watch the game. They're proud to see Panathinaikos again. So for those of us, thinking it's Jova, I think we'll just keep, supporting him. I don't think there's any Panathinaikos fans that would question him. Let's see. Anything else about the football you guys want to touch on before we kind of segue into the basketball side of things?
What's the qualifying looking like, Adoni, for those who don't follow or know how the whole breakdown and how we advance, things like that? Because I think there's one real caveat to it all, is that what one home we win at home and doesn't matter what happens in the second leg, we're on, or how does that all work?
We have the second leg against Dnipro at home. It is the second qualifying round, which if we win, we go into the third qualifying round of Champions League, which is still, if we were to win that, the playoff round is after that before the group stage for Champions League. Now, if we beat Dnipro and lose in the next round, we have a playoff round in the Europa,
right?
but have, I think, at that point, a guaranteed Europa Conference League spot.
So yeah, that's, I guess I was wanting the breakdown explanation, because we're kind of in a pretty good spot this year compared to, like, look at the likes of PAOK and Olympiacos, and that league position really can be a huge deal breaker, a good advantage for Europe qualifying and all that. So a win against New Pro basically gives us a lot to try to move on, whether Champions League or Europa League, basically at this stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. Because we can get that win against Dnipro, and essentially it'll give us that foot in the door, that qualification into the group stages for the first time in years. I think it's the first time since 2016 Panathinaikos would be in the group stages if we're able to win. So that'll be real positive. I think we finished second in the league, but compared to Olympiacos and PAOK, this time it seems a little more favorable. If you guys remember last year, we had Slavia Prague, which I feel like we got unfortunate with that one. They're a very good team, and we fought
and we
hard.
played them really well too, though, man. The game was there for taking, and still frustrates me. But here we are.
Here we are, yeah, here we are, and we fought hard against them, but in the end, it wasn't enough, and so that's what gives me confidence, though, in this team. I think we'll be able to get that win against Dnipro, and get ourselves into that group stage and get Panathinaikos back in the big lights, European nights. It's been a very, very long time since we've seen that. Any concerns heading into the game against the Dnipro? I know it's a couple of weeks away. You guys feeling confident going against Dnipro with what we've got right now?
Cautiously optimistic.
Nice, good way to put it.
I'd say the same. Didn't we? I think last year when we played Slavia's, like right when we had gotten Sporar, I think too, right? So like he came in for a small cameo, and we're just like, man, if we only had him for like a week or two prior, get some training in, things like that. Obviously now, I mean, for me, wouldn't have made a difference. For me, he's been a penalty merchant so far for us, but I feel a little bit more optimistic this time around. A, because of the level of opponent, but B, like there hasn't been too much big of a shakeup in our squad. So again, we've been asking for signings, but at the same time, like we've got the same core guys, so there's no real surprises or missing components. And I think that may help us this time around, rather than trying to integrate somebody last minute like we had to try last year with Sporov. So I feel pretty good, but again, can't take any opponent lightly, no matter the level that they're coming from. Um, Still gotta come away with a win at the end of the day. What do you think, Adoni?
Yeah, no, I agree. You've always got to be cautiously optimistic. Can never take any opponent lightly in whatever sport it is. Full respect to Dnipro. Panathinaikos, those European nights, going back even through these kind of years of struggle, Panathinaikos seems to kind of put that little extra sense of urgency in them. We may not have gotten the best results over the last few years, but if there's one thing I think we can know, it's that Panathinaikos is going to come out there, they're going to fight, and they're going to try their best to get that victory. And again, we haven't had that much of a huge shakeup like you guys said, so our core is still there. Um, but adding guys like Zeka who kind of have played in Europe for Panathinaikos in the past, I think that's going to kind of add that extra little dimension and that understanding to let these other players know. Even we talked about that discrepancy earlier between really young players in the squad and then the older players. And I think Zeka kind of brings in that tie where, hey, youngsters, this is what we do in Europe. Hey, those of you that have come from abroad, this is what Panathinaikos is known for in Europe. And he can kind of bring that level playing field. So I've got optimism. I've got respect for Dnipro, but I've got optimism for our club. And I'm just, really hoping we can get that win going into the game and just finally get into that group stage again. Finally watch Panathinaikos in the middle of the week outside of Super League, actually in Europe.
And let's not forget, Dnipro isn't playing at home technically in Ukraine. Our away leg is in Slovakia, and
Right.
I think I've already been seeing a lot of different guys on Twitter and Facebook and talking about the away trip. So there's going to be a good amount of fans at the away game. Probably even number, maybe equaling the the Ukrainians there, given that it's in Slovakia and everything that's going on in Ukraine right now. So that gives us an advantage in the away leg, and then it comes back to Leofoto after that. It seems like it really is in our hand for this tie to take it to them and take care of business.
I was gonna say, and with everything going on in Ukraine, unfortunately, but I think I'd have to go back and look. But I was seeing reports they lost a couple, two or three of their like really good players as well. I think so. It's an unfortunate situation, everything going on. And obviously we have mad respect for them and hope it's just a good matchup. But like Nito mentioned, everything's kind of pointing in our favor right now. So don't want to jinx it, but it's looking a little hopeful for us to get back into Europe in whatever capacity we can.
And I haven't seen anything the last week or so, but I know that their striker, one of their best players, has been rumored to be leaving. I don't know if that ended up going through or not, but that's another point of conversation, that if he ends up actually leaving before the first leg, that obviously really tilts the favor towards us. I mean, he's one of their best players from what I've seen.
That's right. Yeah, that's something that, certainly does play into our favor, of course, them being away from their actual home venue. And of course, the players that they've lost. Um, Things are stacking in our favor. It's just one of those things where Jova knows that he's got to tell his guys, he's got to tell our guys to just, not take it lightly and don't take it, as if we've already won the round, won the matchup. Just kind of go in there, get those wins, um, and just see things through that way. So, best of luck to our boys in a couple of weeks. I think our Australian panel is probably gonna highlight the game a little more when they meet up for the next episode. So just kind of segueing now into basketball. So Panathinaikos, of course, has the football side of things, and then there's also the basketball side of things as well, which is very popular. After a very unfortunate season, one that was not fruitful. There's no titles for Panathinaikos BC in quite a while. We've seen quite a bit of a shakeup with Panathinaikos making some big signings. I think one of the biggest signings, of course, was the hiring of Ergin Ataman. He's one of the top coaches in Europe. He came over from Anadolu Efes, and he's promised Panathinaikos is going to make some bomb signings. And it seems like we've made a couple of bomb signings already with the signing of combo guard, point guard Luca Vildoza, and the signing of Lesor from Partizan, who's a shot blocker. He's a center. Um, Alki, your thoughts on these signings so far, the coach and these two players?
Um, it's hard to say because I just recently started getting into basketball, but I like the combo guard. He obviously came off of I think a pretty bad injury coming into this last season. But he's a good combo guard. He's a scoring guard. He's kind of flashy, can play make. I think he'll be really good. I think that's a spot where I think overall our team in general kind of lacked more continuity. There was a lot of individual talent, but not really any continuity. And I think at the point guard spot, we even brought that kid Moraitis from Peristeri. I watched him a lot, from the youth team, and I like that signing because he's kind of a combo guard, but he does a little bit of everything. He's a dog on defense. He can play make, but knows his spot. I think him is a quality backup. And I think we had who's that shooting guard we just had? He left. There was an up and down. He was our scorer.
Was it Dwayne Bacon?
Dwayne Bacon, Derek Williams, these guys that are great individual guys, but I think given how bad and up and down we were this last season, those were the type of signings we got. So I think they're doing a clean house, new coach, new culture. Hopefully it kind of brings in kind of like what the football team did and just a new culture and just more continuity. And I'm happy with these signings. Hopefully I think we're rumored with a couple more, and I think it'll bode well for us. I think our inside game was lacking. And like I said, the scoring, there were a couple games where we talked about in chat where Panathinaikos scored 9 points in a quarter, 11, 13. Like you can't have games like that consistently. Here and there, it's fine. It's going to happen. You have bad games, but I feel like especially the second half of the season, we just really fell off and had too many games in a row where we had second or third quarters of just single digit scoring, which just you can't have it. I think one of our last games, even against Olympiacos before it got postponed because of our unfortunate fans, we scored 30 something points to their like 60. It's embarrassing to say the least. You can't have games like that. So it's been a while since they've been successful. So hopefully these signings are just a snowball to just more to come and hopefully find some success this season.
Yeah, perfectly said, Alki. I'm very happy about the signing of Luca Vildoza. A lot of the fans are very happy. Again, that combo guard, he's a scoring guard. Unfortunately, we let go of Paris Lee, who was, I would say a fan favorite, certainly one of my favorites on this team. Tricky guard who could score. He could pass, and he really tried. He really tried hard. And now we've got Luca in place. He played for the New York Knicks. Shout out to Coots. I know that's his basketball team in the NBA. And so Vildoza's got that experience. He's played at a high level. I believe he played for Red Star Belgrade last season. And along with Lesor, we've got that center added in. We let go of Derek Williams. We've got Lesor in, and we've also let go of Gudaitis as well. So Panathinaikos with Ergin Ataman, they're trying to rebuild this culture. We again, as Alki alluded to, there's still a couple more signings. Apparently, the buzz around Twitter is that Mario Hezonja is trying to work his way towards Panathinaikos, towards his beloved Panathinaikos club. That still remains to be seen. He's under contract with Real Madrid, current EuroLeague champions. Along with other club fan favorite, Ioannis Papapetrou, certainly one of my favorite players. He's trying to work his way back after a successful season at Partizan in Serbia. to Panathinaikos. So still a couple more signings to make. Adamin, of course, as mentioned, he's won EuroLeague with Anadolu Efes, and he's going to be on the lookout there for more players. And hopefully, this Panathinaikos team can get back to Final Four. That is what Adamin has stated his goal is, to bring Panathinaikos back to Final Four, try to chase that seventh championship in Europe. And best of luck. We'll be highlighting and covering the basketball team as the season progresses, as signings are made, and we could just, of course, wish that luck towards the team. Mitso, did anything stand out to you about any of these signings or about the basketball team in general so far this season or this summer?
Well, one other signing that you guys didn't mention was Costa de Tacubo coming in as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Which I'll be honest, I haven't kept up with him really. But at the very least, I know that it'll give a good spotlight onto the team, especially since the EuroLeague will be coming onto ESPN for American viewers in the fall. So having one of the Cuba Bros on the team will definitely be very cool. I feel like there's going to be a lot of, you could already imagine it just whenever he comes on, even if it's for a cameo, like people are going to be buzzing around him. And hopefully for him, he hits the ground running and he actually has an impact on the team. It'll be the best for both him and the club to have that happen. Other than that, I've been out of touch with the basketball team since I moved from Greece, but it seems like the best thing to happen to the club recently was bringing in Ataman. It seems like he's the guy to really shake up the culture and kind of rebuild the team back, that it seems like collapsed since Obradovic left. So I remember that for the basketball team, it was a team of personalities, really, in its heyday back when we won those two Euro leagues that I remember in 2009 and 2011 with Diamadivi and Jaskevicius and Mike Batiste and of course Zeljko Obradovic. So now it seems like Ataman is trying to recreate that group of personalities under him. So I hope it works out.
Yeah, we can only hope, that it works out and Panathinaikos can get that seventh star. Just a little bit of a rival watch. So we saw that Olympiacos basketball club. They lost in the EuroLeague final recently. They won the domestic double in basketball, and they've had a bit of a struggle as well. Do you guys think with the signings Panathinaikos has made this summer that they'll be a lot more competitive and possibly retake that championship in the league? What are we thinking so far? I know the summer's not done yet.
I mean, it's hard to say. Like everything points to, us moving in the positive direction while Olympiacos unfortunately ended, the way they ended, and now with their off season not looking too well. But they've been so successful for so long. I can't imagine that they just fold out, even with the losses, that they still don't remain competitive. And we also have to see, even though he's got the pedigree and the history, we got to see all this come together for us. We got a new coach, good players, but end of the day, we got to see it come together on the court, what the finished product is. And I think there were certain spurts or moments where we were able to compete with them and keep up with them in certain games, but at the end of the day, they still had that streak against us. They hadn't lost to us in how long? So I think it's still a stretch to see. Obviously, they're negotiating with Lucas. They lost their MVP. We got to see what they come up with replacements before I can really make judgment, honestly. Right now, it's looking good for us compared to them, but at the end of the day, they still were a top team, and those guys top teams don't just go away just like nothing. They don't vanish easily.
And
right.
and they do still have Barjoka, who is a strong coach and a strong, like I was saying earlier, a strong personality to have, which I think plays a bigger role in basketball than football. So, um, I wouldn't put them down quite yet. I think it's better off that Ataman and the basketball club focuses on what we can do moving forward. Um, on the one hand, the EuroLeague is more gives us more of an opportunity because we just need to make the top 8 to make the playoffs, and we can move forward from that. And I mean, in all honesty, in the Greek league, we'll most likely be facing Olympiacos in the final again, in 11 months' time. So, there's no point in worrying about them because the goal is to make the EuroLeague playoffs, and we'll most likely be in the Greek league playoffs anyways, no matter what happens. So let's just
Right.
put our heads down and hope for the best at this point.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point there. Mitso, Panathinaikos, arguably having one of its worst seasons in quite a while last season, still making the playoffs against Olympiacos. That's likely going to be the case again next year. I think, like Alki alluded to, they're not going to just go away like that. That doesn't really happen to good teams. Panathinaikos, like Mitso stated, I think we're going to have to really put our heads down, work towards, building something and establishing a new culture and a new era. I think the problem with the basketball team since Obradovic left is that there's no real identity. And so, with a serious coach like Ataman and, owners spending and bringing in some pretty good players, I think this is kind of setting up a good template for us to, create a new identity into a new era now. Here's hoping we can still fill out the roster. I'm hoping players like Grigonis, for example, I think I would love to see him stay. He came in, there was a lot of anticipation with him. I think a lot like in the football club with Verbic, I think Grigonis hasn't really found his footing yet. And I would love to see him one more season, maybe get himself acclimated under this coach, Ataman. And bringing back possibly Papagiannis. I would love to have Papagiannis. He's a homegrown boy. Of course, he's had that NBA experience. He's linked with the move away from us. Hopefully, management can work their magic and come to some sort of agreement. He was the captain for the team this year after Papa Petru left. And he's I believe 7'2", shot blocker, can hit mid range shots. So that's a kind of guy. If you want to make a run in EuroLeague, you want these types of players on your team. So yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts there heading forward. Any final thoughts before we end this episode, you guys? Any last
Well,
things you want to add?
another thing to keep in mind with the basketball team, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last time we made the knockout rounds, the playoffs, whatever they're called for EuroLeague, was when we got swept by Fenerbahce, and there was whole that whole issue with Yanakopoulos not allowing the players to fly back and making them take the bus back from Turkey to Athens, right? Was that the last time we were in the playoffs?
I don't quite recall off the top of my head the last time.
I
I
mean,
do remember that incident being reported. I just don't remember what year it was.
it's close enough where it might have been the last time, or even if it wasn't the last time,
It's close to it.
it's close to it. Like maybe 1 or 2 years after that we made it. But I mean that was recent. That was right before COVID, so 2018, 2019 maybe.
Yeah, I remember us playing. I think in 2018 was it Real Madrid,
Okay.
uh, where we ended up losing with them. That might have been 2017, 17 or 18. I think it was Doncic's last year on Real Madrid.
Right.
I don't remember if that was the last time we were in the playoffs.
Or
Um,
it might have even been 20 because, COVID didn't kick off until the spring. So,
right.
it might have been that playoff
It,
run
it
was
was, but I think, yeah, prior to that, the last time that would have been the first time we missed it in since the last decade. I think it
right.
hasn't happened twice in a row. So before that was when, we won it, uh, and did pretty good with Yamadidis around that time. So yeah, it hopefully this is a turning point. I hope.
A turning point for sure, but I just meant to say that, it the club has taken a toll at this point, and I think fans need to keep that in mind that, if we might make playoffs, but we might not make Final Four this season, or we might make Final Four, but it might end there, and quite a
Yeah,
you know,
setting what are the expectations really, or is the setting that we need to get back there. Take baby
yeah.
steps.
I
Is
would I
what
would say the expectation is to make playoffs comfortably and compete comfortably again to the end for
yeah,
the Greek league.
Yeah.
Obviously, it would be great to win the league, um, but
100%.
I think that's where we're at realistically. That we bring the Greek league to a 5 game series to the end, and we make playoffs comfortably. We're not hoping that we get results the last couple games that brings us into playoffs. That we're in that fifth, sixth, seventh position, and see what happens after that.
That
Yeah.
brings me to one more last minute thought coming full circle. So obviously, quick thoughts on last season, but what are the expectations for the football club too? Personally, I think we came into last season. I can't say anybody comfortably thought we'd be competing for the title.
Mm-hmm.
But once we saw it was there, I think that was the expectation, and a lot of people were understandably we bottled the was a 9 point lead, 11 point lead. We lost the league, but what's the expectation for you guys going into this season? Are we setting a high bar for title again? Do you think, or do you think last year was kind of one of our windows just because of Olympiacos' downfall, for lack of better terms, and PAO being really inconsistent? What are
Mm.
your guys' expectations for our club this year? Is it still just top four, cup, title? What do you guys think?
I don't think. I mean, Olympiacos is going to be strong, I guess, as any Olympiacos team always is. But I think Ike is really the main competitor to worry about. I would say the realistic expectations for the football club is making European group stage, whatever competition it is. It does not matter, just any group stage. And honestly, I think one of the two titles, whether it's a cup or a protathlema, I think that's what we should go for.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm in this position where I think the main goal, and we've heard the club kind of talk about this, the main goal is obviously to get into European group stages. And so if we get into that European group stage, it's going to be hard and to fight in the European group stage and also for the title at the same time. Of course, I want us to fight for the title. Last year was the luxury because we just got to focus on the league. While a team like Olympiacos, for example, they were still thinking about Europe. Now, if we make the group stage, our focus is going to be kind of at two places at once. I'm if we make those groups, I'm hoping top two in the league. I would love for us to win the title, but understandably, depending on what we do in Europe, I don't know with injuries and things like that how that's gonna play out. But I'd love keep it low. Let's say if we miss out on the league, at least something, some type of silverware, just to kind of show that this Panathinaikos team is competitive again. I want us to have our third year in a row where we're competing and either winning something or at least coming very, very close to it. I think that's my, kind of expectation. I'm trying to be real here because playing in Europe, I know that's going to take some toll on the players if we get into that group stage. And I know in sports there's luck too, as much as people don't like to admit. You got to be lucky with injuries and health. And Ike, of course, have a very good team. In my opinion, I think Ike are probably going to be the favorites going into the league this season just because of the players that they've signed. And of course, coming off that victory. Olympiacos is going to be interesting just because, they've got a new project going on all the time. So
There's
I'm
always something interesting with them, man.
yeah, yeah, especially this last year. I mean, that was some type of implosion there. I don't know what's going on. So and then
But
Pauk is
they're still
Pauk,
there. They still
you know,
competed. They still finished top four. So you can, I was saying in basketball, never count them out. But
yeah, you
I
can
was
never
more
count.
curious.
Speaking of Alki, have you seen anything about that Huang player? I think Olympiacos is getting an offer from either Inter. Um, I think
I
Inter.
haven't I haven't seen any news on that. I know they got that center back since Socrates left, but I haven't seen any like concrete, like real serious offers with it. But of course that could pick up. I know they do have quite a few players that, you know, a lot of bigger teams, European teams, top 6 to 10 league, I would say have interest, but nothing has come to fruition. If it does, that'd be a huge blow for them because they just, Villa contract expired. They didn't extend him. They lose Huang. Their midfield is now going to start looking real thin. Olympiacos has a lot, like Andoni says, they have a big project and they've got a lot of holes to fill. But if they lose him, who I think he was one of their biggest players, that'd be a huge thing. I saw some rumors to Inter, but I haven't seen anything. I follow Serie A pretty closely with Milan, but I haven't seen anything come to fruition as far as like offers or meetings or anything like that. So we'll see.
James is definitely gone, right?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
think his
James
contract was
left.
terminated. James Marcelo is already playing elsewhere.
Yeah.
They've got a huge overhaul. I mean, Olympiacos fans were always, talking about it last season and half of the season before. They've got a huge overhaul needing to be done, but they're going to have a really, really interesting off season in both. I mean, they need an overhaul there, and then like we mentioned in basketball, they lost two of their, or maybe lose two of their best players. They've lost their best player, but yeah, they're going to have a really interesting time. But with that, these are times that teams like us, we have to take advantage of these situations. No matter how much we hate them, and we can fight all day on Twitter and in the streets, whatever, because of the rivalry. They've been top dog for a little while. So these are seasons that unfortunately, like last season, we have to take advantage, and I hope this is another season we can in both sports. Both footy and basketball.
Nice. Yeah, guys. I think that's a great way to kind of finish off our first episode. Here's the American panel. Be sure to give a like to this podcast, this Panathinaikos Fans International. Share it with your friends, leave comments, let us know any topics you guys would like to talk about going forward. What are your thoughts on the basketball club, the football club, the polo club, everything, the Panathinaikos in general? We got a big organization, beautiful fan base, very passionate. Once again, thank you guys for watching this or listening to this podcast, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Follow on Twitter, PAO Fans INT, PAO Fans International.
Yes, follow us on Twitter.
Yeah,
And
Twitter,
Instagram.
YouTube, everywhere.
Yeah,
Instagram,
we're all on
Facebook.
socials.
And give us a mailbox question, a shout out, whatever you need. Appreciate it, guys.
All right. Oh, how do I stop recording? Oh, there